ready for Drew Wagar's Elite Dangerous Law Tour. So that's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to record it and hopefully record Drew's audio from his Twitch stream. And so, yeah, just enjoy the experience basically. It's hasn't started yet, so that's just letting you know what is actually happening. I'm just going to go out and have a flit around, see if anybody's about, and we'll be right back once it all starts. So, just waiting on Drew to appear. Here he is now. He's a little bit late because we've been in the UK. We've been doing a round of applause for our National Health Service and all the carers and that for all they're doing throughout this pandemic.
I will start that again. I always forget to press a button. Well, you've got to make a mistake somewhere along the line. That might as well be the one, right? So anyway, sorry about that, guys. Welcome to the Elite Dangerous Law Tour. I shall start that again. The unofficial Elite Dangerous Law Tour. So yeah, and fantastic to see so many of you already on the stream. So a few familiar names. And a few names I don't know, so that's always welcome, but thank you very much for joining me this evening. Now we are embarking on a tour of the law, hence the name of the law tour. Okay, so we will be starting here in Seoul today, and we will be proceeding outwards through space, through time itself, through the space-time continuum, to take a tour of the background story of this game that we all love. And sometimes get frustrated by unequal measures, but that's another story for another day. We will be going to various significant places in the game, in Elite Dangerous. We will also be on occasion firing up previous versions of the game, right back to the 1984 Elite, through to Frontier Elite 2 and Frontier First Encounters. So, yeah, so it's going to be a little bit of an experiment. The last time I did a community event of any kind, it all ended in a bit of chaos and death and destruction and salt. So I'm taking a bit of a risk here to go back, but there we go. We are live now. I am sitting in my private group. So for those of you who hopefully have joined, loads and loads of people joining this afternoon. So thank you very much for doing that. I am in my private group. There we are. I'm sitting in Abraham Lincoln Space Station. So for those of you who are in the private group Drew Wagar, you want to join me in game, Abraham Lincoln Station in the Solar System in Earth orbit is the place to be. So this is the private group that you can join me in. Now you do not have to be in the private group. Okay, you do not have to be in the private group. You can be an open.
We'll head that way.
To dice with death. You can be in your own private group, or you can be in solo. It doesn't really matter. We're only really today going to be tooling around the Sol system itself. We're not taking there'll be a bit of frame shifting, but everything we're going to talk about today in this episode, So It Begins, is here in the Sol system because this is where we start out from, right? Okay, so we are going to start from this particular location. Now, just a few advisory on content. I have talked about this before. If we get any griefing in this group, I will ban said perpetrators. If that becomes untenable for whatever reason, I may switch into solo mode. I don't really want to. Elite is a community game, and I'm hoping the community will honour that. If that becomes something that starts interrupting the progress and the enjoyment for the rest of us, then we'll consider. But for the time being, the private group will be open. My view on this is I will trust everybody until such time as my trust is abused. So the rules of the private group are that there is to be no PvP. We can fly in convoy, we can deal with any PvE encounters we have. I have actually been interdicted a couple of times in the Sol system by pirates, and so things could go wrong, right? But the idea of the whole thing is that we learn a little bit about the Elite Dangerous lore. I give you maybe the odd bit of insider information about things that you may not have heard before, and we have some fun. The whole point of this is to have some fun and to learn a little bit about background lore. So if you're ready, we will start moving. So I'm going to launch my ship. I am flying a Cobra because
So am I.
Tradition, right? My Cobra is also called the Robert Holdstock, and for those of you who already know a little bit about your Elite lore, you may know why, but there we go. So we will have some fun. So let's rendezvous outside the space station in the first instance. And if I can remember the controls. Whoa! There's another thing to do, right? Is to reset your OTAS before you take off. Always a good thing. As you know, I'm not the universe's best pilot, right? So I will do my best. I can already see a lot of commanders. Look at that. There's dozens of circles there, dozens of squares. So that's good. So thank you very much all for your company. I do appreciate you all coming along, right? I do appreciate you all coming along. It is lovely to see you, both in person on the Twitch stream and in the game. I can see hundreds of ships out here already, which is fantastic. So that is an amazing thing.
This is where it crashes.
Now, I don't know whether Elite is going to play ball with us in terms of where we're going. Now, what I would like to do, because I'm British, as I would like to form up and do a hyperspace jump to Earth and materialise out of frameshift above the UK. So those of you who know your geography should be able to recognise that the UK is actually on the far side of the planet from the perspective we're at now. That's where we're going to head. So let us see what we can do.
No other commanders on here with me.
Arriving in the UK. So that's going to be the destination. Okay. Charge my frameshift drive. I'm going to see if I can get this coordinated. I'm not too worried about organising too many wings because it's just a case of seeing how the game will let us play. Okay. Waiting on the cooking pot. I see you.
Frameshift drive charging.
I've got
4, 3, 2, 1. Engage.
See if I can bring in some. There's so many people on. 2 pending friend requests. Come on. The UI is crapping out on me a little bit here already. Let's try that again. Oh, maybe I can do it from the menu. Look at this. There we go. Right. Let's get you into the group. I'll try and do as little of this as possible. If you can join my group outside of the streaming time, that would be preferred. Why can't I get across to there? Sometimes this interface does wind me up. Right, I'll do my best. Right, there we go. Right, because we want to get talking about the lore, right? And we need to get moving. So, guys, right, you should be in. Right, so the target is to head towards the Earth above the UK. So if you can charge your frameshift drives, I'll hold it on the throttle, and we will go there. So I hope actually some people will be taking footage and taking film and screenshots and all sorts of stuff. Feel free to do so. Post it on Twitter and do whatever you do, and we will go from there. So let's start with hundreds of ships. Right. So frameshift drive. Okay. Let's charge it up, and we'll go from there. I can see how many? I don't know how many commanders I can see. A lot. I don't normally see that many in game, which is awesome. Lovely for coming on for the private group. So the instance is a little bit unsteady. We may bust the we may bust the game. We will do our best. Okay. This is why I wasn't too worried about. We could spend hours trying to sort out wings. Okay. Let's let the game do the best it can to see. And if Frontier can maybe spin up a few extra servers for us, maybe they will. I'm just waiting for my frameshift drive to charge it because there's so many of you about. That's going to be a little bit slow. a few people doing very, very close passes on my ship, but that's cool. Okay, they're getting themselves on stream. I have no problem with that at all. Commander Yannick is already above the UK. I'm still waiting for my drive to charge here. We will get there. We will get there. So if you want to hold on the throttle for a hyperspace jump, let's do that. That always looks pretty, right? I always like doing those kind of things. Let's see if we can do that. You may or you may not jump in or jump out of the instance. We'll see how the game can cope. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time faffing about with wings and things because it does take a long time to get organised. Why is there a hollow triangle? I can't see a hollow triangle. Where? Hollow triangle on the radar. I don't know. What's a hollow? I can't see a hollow triangle. No. Right, my frameshift drive is literally almost there. Who's this sitting in front of me? Trying to block me from escaping. You're jamming my frameshift drive, my friend. Right, here we go. There were a lot of people in the game. Right, I think I'm literally ready. Has everybody else got their frameshift drive charged? Whoever is this in this cutter. Hello, old duck. Good to see you as well, my friend. Right, cutter disruption. Right, I'm dive out the way. Right, let's go for it. Hyperspace ho. Now see how far we can get. Bang! Right, and there's loads of people in the hyperspace as well. There we go. Right, let's just see if we can get into orbit of the Earth over. I won't go too fast here. Right, where is? Where's the UK? It's probably under cloud. It generally is. Right, hang on. There we go. I was going a little bit too far north, so there we go. Everybody hang above the UK. It's just still daylight there, which is good. You do need a permit for Sol. You do need a permit for Sol. So had you, hopefully most of you have got that, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And we'll see how it goes. And there it is. As I mentioned on one of my streams earlier, there were the map of the UK has changed a little bit, and you can see areas have been flooded and all sorts of stuff's been going on. So there we go. I'm too close. Right. So I don't know if you can see my wake. Those of you who are in my instance. But see if you can drop it anywhere close to me. We'll see how it goes. But I'm just going to tool around in Earth orbit for a bit with a nice view of the UK, because that gives me a chance to be hands off. Okay. Interesting actually. See if anybody can find me having dropped out of hyperspace. Right. Okay. So other people are above Cambridge. We'll be moving on from there in a minute. We may head back to the station a little bit for some shots. But let's start with a bit of lore, okay? Let's start with a bit of lore. Now, the story of Elite is very much a story of exploration. Okay, now I've got an official timeline for this game, or semi-official anyway. And it starts, the timeline starts in the 1950s, okay? That's where the history of Elite kind of begins in the lore. And it's effectively mankind in space, as it was then, or humanity, shall we say nowadays. Humanity in space. So 1950, the first men in space. Obviously Yuri Gagarin from the USSR, as it was then. And followed up by the Americans very shortly afterwards. But the USSR was running the space race for a long, long time, okay? So the 1950s is when we have electronics coming in, and we also have the beginning kind of the nuclear arms race, and that technology explosion is what starts off the Elite story, believe it or not. That's where it kind of begins in the lore. But prior to all that, there's the whole story of the planet that we're orbiting here, right? For hundreds of years, people were charting the surface of the Earth. I'm going to actually drop into Super Cruise again. So follow me around in Earth orbit if you wish to. I'm going to need an escape vector, because we have people in Earth history,
Frameshift drive
such
charging.
as, let's say, Christopher Columbus.
4,
We have
3, 2,
Captain James Cook.
engage.
It's very cool. Can't see anything, but very cool. We have Francis Drake. We have Marco Polo. We have Amelia Earhart. Okay, all of these people were charting and exploring the Earth before we, before we even got off the planet. The Great Age of Exploration was between the 15th and the 15th and the 17th century. Okay, and in that time we went from a culture on the Earth where we didn't even know where the boundaries of the world were. The first circumnavigation didn't take place until only a few hundred years before the 1950s, where the elite story starts. And these explorers were charting the unknown. They were going in ships across the oceans, trying to find their way around things, usually for reasons of money, spices, exotic plants, you name it. Okay. So all of those things were the reasons why they were doing it. But it took many, many long years for us to chart the Earth. And it wasn't until the 1950s whereby Neil Armstrong, not Neil Armstrong, that was the 1960s. It was Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, a suborbital flight that the Russians did that starts off our voyage into space. Okay. So, and then we have the 1960s, right? Then we have the 1960s, and in what is, of course, in actually, yeah, you're quite right, Gallagher Champ. You are quite right. One orbit, yeah. So it wasn't actually suborbital. It was you're quite right, as the Americans did the suborbital flight. They couldn't equal. They didn't have as much thrust as the Russians. They couldn't do it. So that's a very good point. Look at that. That's very cool. The Super Cruise in Earth orbit. Fantastic. So then we hit the 1960s when the space race has kicked off, and the space race, of course, was a political venture. Okay, we went into space for political reasons. Basically, the Americans trying to beat the Russians, and vice versa. Okay, very, very little actual science in many ways was done, but the political force behind that took us from the Earth to the Moon. So let's use that. Let's go and recreate Neil Armstrong's journey. Now, he took 3 days to get to the Moon in the systems at the time. So what I'm suggesting with you now, we don't have 3 days, right? But we do have frameshift drives. So let us go to the Moon. We choose to go to the Moon and do the other things because they are easy, right? We'll head for the Galileo space station and rendezvous there. So if everybody selects that, I think that's correct, isn't it? Let me just double check on the system map. I'm not so familiar with the solar system. I believe it's the Galileo space station. So the Galileo space station in Earth, in the Moon orbit, lunar orbit. Let's head there, and we will rendezvous in space at that point. And continue the story. So we're up to the 1960s. We've done 10 years of the elite law, and maybe a little bit in the background, right? Now, the distance from the Earth to the Moon is 238,000 miles, about 400,000 kilometers, and it took Apollo 11 3 days, right? 3 days to get to the Moon, using, obviously, by elite standards, primitive chemical rockets. I'd like to see all these people in hyperspace, not hyperspace, frameshift drive, going to the Moon simultaneously. Very cool indeed. 384,000 kilometers, Duplex has given me the exact number. I knew it was roughly that. A distance which is quite impressive, right? But as we know, nothing compared to the distances that we can travel in the elite today. I'm going to use this newfangled what's they called? Super Cruise Assist. There we are. Hands off the. Oh, it's there anyway. Right, I've managed the trip that Neil Armstrong took 3 days, and we've done it in a matter of minutes, right? There we go. And that distance is of nothing to those of us now equipped with spacecraft and frameshift drives, right? Now, it's interesting, again, in the lore, First Man on the Moon, the history, the lore of Elite Dangerous is exactly the same as ours up until the present day, pretty much. Okay, we'll get to the present time. So if you want to hang around here with me, we've got a nice little crescent moon in the background there. That makes for a lovely shot. We'll do a quick flyby of the moon in a little bit as well. So hop into orbit space near Galileo Station, and we'll do screenies there as well. So we've just literally in real time gone past the major anniversary for Apollo 11, but of course this is the first time in human history whereby humans have left the gravitational influence of the Earth in that sort of sense. We've actually stepped down in Apollo 11, obviously. July, Americans will shoot me for that. July 20th, 1969 was when, and I think it's only fair to say Americans stepped on, okay, at this point in time, because, you know, all credit, I think, personally, one of the most significant events in the history of humanity, and all credit to the Americans for doing it. A shame you haven't gone back there, but maybe we're working on that, right? But yeah, all credit to America for the massive, astonishing effort it took to place a man on the moon, and it is not an easy thing to do, right? We know that, but it is an amazing achievement, and it's one of the key events in Elite Dangerous lore. The fact that we got off the Earth and arrived at a different planetary body, okay, not that far away, but we did it. And mankind's push to get out of the Earth and into space was a big drive. And Elite can effectively trace its lore back to these momentous events from the 1950s and the 1960s. What we have then is a new power source. We have chemical rockets at this point, and we also have the commercial fission power becoming existent. So the ability to split the atom, right? The ability to split the atom is the first significantly huge improvement in power generation that humanity has. We have fission power. We can split the atom. We can liberate that. That gives us all sorts of problems, okay? Because we have this power, we can make electricity from it, but we can also make massive, massive bombs, okay? And that becomes a problem in Elite Dangerous lore. The other things we've been doing, and we haven't got time to do them live on stream, but it is worth you doing them if you are here. So if you fire up your FSS and do a scan of the system, you will note that there are some remote probes in the system. I'm not precisely sure which ones they are. I know I've been to see Voyager 2, which was launched in the 1970 something. I should know. You can go and visit that in Elite Dangerous. It's definitely worth a trip. It's a fair old way, to be honest. It's a fair old way. Frontier have put Voyager 2 in the approximate location. It will be in the 3306, and that is a long, long way away from Earth. Okay. Galachamp's telling me it's 1977. Excellent. Yes, I do remember it being launched. I'm old enough to remember that. I'm not old enough to remember the moon landings, but I am old enough to remember the launch of Voyager. Very, very exciting. Now, Voyager 1 and 2 were two probes that were sent out. There were previous ones called the Pioneer probes as well, and they are now amongst the furthest objects away from Earth that are built by humanity. And again, good on the Americans for going out exploring. They're the ones who fired those probes up. There have been other probes as well, but Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 are particularly famous. Voyager 2 in particular for being the only spacecraft to have visited the planet Uranus and the planet Neptune. And there's another one that's also in Elite Dangerous called New Horizons, which was the first probe to visit the dwarf planet, as it's now called, which is Pluto. So exploration was happening. Now this takes us into the 1970s, okay? So this is mankind finding its way through the solar system and on out into space. So by the end of the 70s, we have the first photographic reconnaissance of the solar system. And by the 1990s, we have visited all the planets that we were aware of at the time. We have since discovered more dwarf planets. Voyager 6 became Vega. No, you're in the wrong sci-fi franchise, my friend. And Galileo space station, of course, is named after Galileo Galilei, who was the first person, allegedly, or at least the first person that history records, to have turned a telescope to the sky, looked at the craters on the moon, and also seen the moons of Jupiter. So a good name for a space station, I feel. A very good name for a space station. So there we are. So we are in orbit of the moon. And there's a lovely crate Phantom, I think. Another ship. There we go. I'm going to hold still so you can all fly your ships in front of me. That's fantastic. We come to the end of the 20th century. Okay. Now man has set foot on the moon. We've been into low Earth orbit. We have sent space probes to the far reaches of the solar system, and they've sent images back. We're doing quite well. Okay, we're doing quite well. Now, in the 1990s, the last decade of the 20th century, things start to go wrong on the Earth. We have environmental problems. We have pollution. We have extinction of species because of overpopulation and acquisition of biomes for the progress of humanity. This is all stuff that we're all familiar with. It gets rammed down our throat a little bit by the media, even today. But it starts being a serious problem from the 90s onwards. And at this point, this is where the original elite law, we jump into a slightly parallel universe, okay, with the one that we inhabit as humans, if you like, in the real world. And we try and avoid the real world, okay, because we're talking about elite dangerous law. But what happens at this point is that as the 21st century dawns, things are very, very unstable. Right, I've got a few more invites. Let me stop at the end of the 21st century and do a few more of these sort of things, and we'll go on from there. There's so many people here. All right, let's get those. All right, and I should be able to add you to groups. I think I have to set an option. So let me. Somebody said there was an auto add facility in here somewhere, but I have no idea where it is. So I will investigate that for next week. So those of you just tuned in, we are discussing the Elite Dangerous Law. We've just been covering the 20th century. We've got quite a few centuries to go, as you can probably make out. And we are concentrating on the history of the initial jump into space, which is where Elite Dangerous Law starts. Hope that's not another thing. Oh, a wing invite from Commander Trometer. Okay, let's do that. I don't mind looking up a wing. We can try, and we'll see how it goes. So we are in orbit at the moment of Galileo space station at the moon in lunar orbit, quite a distant lunar orbit, basically, based on that. So at the end of the 20th century in elite law, this is where things start to change. Okay, because in our reality, we've had things like 9/11, we've had various famines and various crises, we had various wars throughout various governments, typically over resources or territory. But in the universe of elite, something else happens. What happens is that corporations get stronger and stronger and stronger. Now we have seen this. This has a basis in our actual reality. Okay, we have many corporations in the world today that are more powerful, have more money and more influence than many governments. Okay, good examples are companies like Amazon and Apple and maybe others like that, eBay and places like that. Some of these organizations are so big and so powerful that they rival governments. Okay, they rival governments, and as a result, they have huge influence. Now, we haven't seen too much in the way of nefarious behavior, but in the universe of elite, what happens is that some of these corporations decide that they can actually run things better than the governments. And in the early years of the 21st century in elite law, corporations and some of the governments actually come into armed conflict. You'd have to imagine an Amazon or an Apple or an eBay, then militarizing, okay, and taking on a government and effectively appropriating it, all right, taking over its territory. And these are the things that occurred in the early years of the 21st century in the elite law. The specifics are not clipped by a cutter. So these are things that occur, okay? These are things that occur. And they are precipitated by things such as, bump my shields up there because I'm getting bumped. They are precipitated by overpopulation, problem that we are ourselves wrestling with at the moment. They are forming up around the letterbox. Actually, that's not a bit. I'm just going to wander over there a little bit. Let's form up. Stop bashing my ship. Form up near the letterbox because that's good fun. I'm going to travel slowly there. Better than cut by a clipper. Yes. I was kind of hoping it was a clipper that I could have made that pun, but never mind. But yeah, so corporations get increasingly militaristic in the universe of elite. In these, and there are population problems. There are, and basically the view that I've taken on it, this isn't stated in the law, but the rationale that I have is that resources become big, resources like water, food, territory become scarce, and corporations basically decide that they are going to own it rather than governments. So there are initially small conflicts with these other governments, but they escalate. Okay, they escalate, and the number of minor wars continues to increase. There is a lot of political unrest.
Delacey Alpha November Delta. Welcome to this federal
The world
facility.
tries to
Please
figure out
observe
what's
all
going
standard
on
docking procedures.
and what the new normal is. Now, oddly enough, of course, right now we're all in lockdown with this virus, and it is altering our society. We may joke about it, we may make the odd meme, we may post the odd comment on Twitter, but it can't have escaped anybody's notice that we are living through a historical event right now with this virus. Okay? When we emerge from the other side of this, things will not be quite the same. They may not be astonishingly different, but they will be subtly different, at the very least, and they may be significantly different. We'll have to wait and see. And it's these sort of events that shape society. We tend to think of the environment we're in as unchanging. Of course, that's not true. And it's the same with this story, right? So these corporations begin to fight governments for their resources, and their strategic plans include annexing great big tracts of the planet to actually be theirs. It's a corporation-owned area, and governments have no jurisdiction. So by the 2020s, there is movements afoot to try and restore the ability of governments to maintain control, partly because they see the environmental damage that these corporations are continuing. So what you've got to imagine, right, is the various corporations are appropriating parts of the planet now, and they are just, if they're mining for more raw materials, they're just doing it without government intervention. If they are felling trees for paper, they're doing it without any kind of government regulation. They have basically taken over a patch of territory, and government laws, whether they are international or whether they are national or whatever they happen to be, do not apply to these corporations. They are their own entities, they can do what they want. This is causing massive ecological damage to the planet. Okay? This is causing massive ecological damage. And it's, the religions begin to get out of hand, and there are mass uprisings. So the 2020s in the universe of elite are very, very bleak times. Okay, lots of people are getting killed. There's war over religion. There is war over territory. There's war over resources. There is lots and lots of pollution. It's all going to shit, right? So the planet, we're doomed. That's basically what the elite. It's much more grim, actually, even than where we are right now. Okay, there's a lot of commonality. We haven't diverged that far right yet, but the elite universe is very grim at this point in time. the Elite Universe does have some bright sparks. Okay, the first commercial space station operated by a corporation appears in this period. Okay, so the corporations now have space capability of themselves. Elon Musk, is very similar to what we have. The corporations are racing the governments for control of space. They see it as a place to exploit, a place to own. And the international treaties that still bind us in our timeline are no longer in effect. Okay, the corporations are just doing what they need to do because they are effectively unfettered, they are unsupervised, and regulations no longer affect them. Okay, so it starts getting pretty nasty, and then by the time we get to the 2030s, we're in an energy crisis. Okay, so we have fossil fuels being burned really, really badly. Yeah, worse than where we are. Yeah, they're accelerating. It's the only major source of power. We have corporations fighting each other for dwindling resources. And the only highlight I've got in the lore, actually, I've managed to find for this period, is that somewhere along the line somebody managed to have a baby in space, or at least not on the Earth. Okay, so we have. That's the only kind of bright spot. Otherwise, it's just doom and gloom in this period of the lore. Okay, and then people are fighting over this stuff. Right, need a pick from above the letterbox. Okay, it's quite the gathering. Right, I'm going to head back quickly to the letterbox, just carefully driving around. I don't know who else is here. If we congregate, let's congregate as close to the letterbox as we can, folks, and then we'll go on to the next chapter of this. Because there's you thought it was grim, I guess it was. I can hunt this up right in front of the entrance. There we go. Galileo Space Station. Okay. Now you can read about some of this history if you want to go and visit the tourist beacons in the solar system. They are worth visiting. There's a bit of history about these things, and you can. You can read about some of these events by the things in the history. So you're all doomed and somebody drops it. Yeah, it's just that's the way it is. Look at this. There's dozens of ships here. That's fantastic. And there's a lovely view of Earth. I don't know if you can see it. I saw it. If I can get it back on the screen. I've lost it now. Where was it? Earth is a lovely little. There it is in the corner. I'm going to park kind of like that. Earth is a lovely. Distant blue orb over there, which is nice. So yeah, we have the planet is in a right mess. Okay, and the corporations are rising in power, acquiring each other militaristically. You can imagine an Amazon taking over the UK, for example, by sheer force of power. Okay, that is what is occurring at this point in time. And then basically it all comes to a head. It all comes to a head in the 2040s. There is World War III. And World War III is conducted with the technology of the time. So basically you imagine the technology that we have today, the computerized bombing, the nuclear capability that we have, and that's basically World War III causes absolutely almost irreparable damage, right, to the Earth. It also, as in any time of war, I mean, if you look at the difference between World War I and World War II and the amount of technology improvements that we had, this war lasts for many years. Okay, and during that time, many new technologies are developed. There's a great advance in technology, as it always is in wartime, but the planet itself is devastated. Okay, the Earth is extremely badly affected. Got a few more people to do. There. And no, I haven't. That's all right. I thought I did. I've got some there. 3 pending fruit. Let's just tick those off so people can jump in. So yeah, so we have the Third World War. And the Third World War is. I can't get used to this UI at all. keep changing it, right? It's not my fault. And I'm old. It takes me a while to adapt. So the planet is devastated, okay, and we are only on the Earth. We haven't achieved anything significant in space other than the space station. We're still bound to the Earth. There is massive amounts of death, okay. Huge swathes of the population are wiped out, and this war takes almost a decade to come to a conclusion. Right? Some sources have it dubbed the energy war. Okay, so it's a fight not only with energy but about energy and being able to control the resources of the planet. And basically, the Earth is devastated. And by 2050, which is a bit scary, I'll be 80 that year. Life doesn't sound like it's really, really worth it. It's very grim on Earth. Massive environmental damage, massive extinctions, massive resource failures, crop failures, you name it. Population of the Earth plummets despite all technology advances. Okay. The only bright thing to come out of that war is that we finally have fusion power. Okay, so from an energy generation perspective, we are able to leave fission behind, splitting the atom, and switch to fusion, which is the ability obviously to fuse smaller nuclei together to generate power, which is the process the sun uses, or the stars use to generate power. And so the Fallout series is a documentary. A lot of these space games do have this kind of very grim beginning, right? So the Earth is a mess, but we have fusion power. Okay, that is the one main achievement that we get because of that massive technological advance, right? Looking for ways to power things, looking for ways to attack our opponents.
Incoming mission critical message.
Fusion, the ability to harness the power that powers the sun, is the thing that changes everything. So the other thing that comes out of there is the Earth is in such a bad state, okay, that it's in some ways only marginally habitable. Okay, there are problems with radiation, there are problems with crop harvesting, all the sort of things that you'd expect in a nuclear winter are now problems that the remaining population of the Earth have to deal with. But technology comes to the rescue in the sense that this is the driver, this is the thing that pushes humanity ultimately out into space for good, is that they start making colonies, okay? They start making colonies. The first one is, unsurprisingly, on the moon. I've lost the location of, there's the Earth. The moon was over here somewhere. So a permanent base is established on the moon. I can't find the moon. Where's the moon? There it is. We don't need to go there. We may go past it. Okay. There's the moon. There we go. The first base is established on the moon. Okay. The first base is established on the moon, and we have people off the planet that can now build a slightly different civilization. And can make sure that humanity doesn't have all its eggs in one basket, because we were effectively almost wiped ourselves out in World War III. We were lucky to escape from that in the Elite Dangerous Law. And then we start to settle the moon, and we start to settle a few other places as well. Right, let's take a spin past the moon. Now I'm going to give you a target. So we're just going to frame shift drive to the moon. I'm just going to charge my frame shift drive. Oh, I'm mass locked because I'm next to the station. Let's move away from there. So let's all move away from the station. We'll try to get the frame shift drives up and running again. I'm just going to get a little bit of distance from the station. Come on, move my mass lock away. Those of you in the same instance as me, if you're happy to form up, then please do. Right, just going to charge frame shift. There's so many of you around. We'll take a spin past the moon. Once we go past the moon, I'm just going to quickly check the system. I'm multitasking. There we go, there's a few people slightly. Lovely to see all the ships, by the way. So I'll try and do a few shout outs. to this sort of stuff. So, well, I forgot that World War III happened so soon. Elite Law, yeah. So it's a bit scary, isn't it? It takes a long time to charge up your frameshift drive when there's so many ships around. But it's good.
Frameshift drive charging.
We'll be there. So we're going to swing past the moon.
4, 3, 2, 1. Engage.
I notice a lot of you have got your. I'm still waiting for my frameshift drive to charge up. Hi everyone, join the Lord Drew. Looks like folks in lots of different instances can't see enough human on radar at the moment. We're suffering a little bit. I mean, it's elite dangerous, right? It's peer-to-peer. Right, I am ready to throttle up, so I hope some of you are. I'm gonna jump into frameshift now and swing past the moon, and then I'll give you the next target destination, and we'll go off there. Here we go. Throttle up to engage.
How good's that? How good's it look?
So, whoa, now I can't even see the moon. So many people.
Wow.
Let's just throttle back a little bit there. I want to get nice and close to the moon, just give us a view of it. There we go. So, this is actually the far side of the moon we're looking at here, the bit that you can't see from Earth. But moon bases were established, right? The colony on the moon was established. There we go. I can just see the moon and the mar of the moon, the dark grey areas there, which are balsamic kind of plateaus. I think we've kind of actually got a proper map of the moon there, so it actually looks like the real thing, which is good. I'm not enough of an astronomer to be able to identify all of the locations on the moon there. I'm sure some of you can do that, which is good. But the moon is where humanity establishes, not surprisingly, its first colony. Okay. Now we're going to head and we're going to rendezvous next at Mars High. Okay, space station in orbit around Mars. That's our next destination. So click your frameshift drives onto Mars High, and we will cruise to the next planet out. Because Mars, as we know in our timeline, is a planet which is it's not habitable in the sense of we could go and stand there today and we would be fine. But it is the closest to a habitable planet that exists in our solar system at this point in time. It is much smaller than the Earth. It's about 1/3 of the size of the Earth, and the gravity is low. The atmosphere is virtually non-existent, but it isn't, absolutely appallingly bad. Venus, for example, a planet that's closest further into the sun than we are, is an absolutely hellish place. Although it's about the same size as the Earth, it has a horrendously thick atmosphere. It rains sulfuric acid, and the surface temperature can melt lead. So it's not a great place to live, right? Whereas Mars basically doesn't have much of an atmosphere, but it is, it's not hostile in that sense. There's lots of problems going to Mars. You've got radiation, and you've got ultraviolet, and you've got no atmosphere, which is a problem. But Mars is much more hospitable than Venus, and it's we are even today in our timeline talking about colonizing Mars. Oh, I'm not using supercruiser system. I keep forgetting to switch this thing on. Where are we? Use this. I bought it. I should use it. There we go. So the second outpost of humanity is established on Mars in the 2070s. Okay, so we build cities in orbit around the Earth to kind of keep our population away from the problems of the planet. We have a massive technological exodus from the planet's surface of Earth. So we build cities in Earth orbit. We have a base on the moon, and we go to Mars. Okay, we also go to Mars, and we start colonizing Mars. And it is in this sort of era that the political structure of the Earth changes forever. Okay. Once the dust has settled, the radioactive dust, okay, from the World War III has settled, what is left on the Earth is, there were corporations, there were multiple governments across the Earth. Okay, we know that from where we are. All that's left, the winner, if you like, of that war, is the United States of America. Okay, the USA. They are the dominant power that remains on the Earth. They're the only ones that actually survive in a recognisable form at all. The United States of America, which is a bit distressing to me. Okay, so Europe, China, Soviet Republic, Africa, all of those governments, they fail. Okay, it is the end of history for those governments. Okay, it's the end of those eras. So that is the end of European history. It is the end of African history. It is the end of Australian history. It is the end of Russian history. In Elite Dangerous, none of those governments survive beyond the 21st century. Okay, they are all gone at the end of World War III. Oops, I've just gone into reverse there. Sorry about that. They are history. They become nothing. They do not go forward from that point. The corporations are also mostly disbanded. Okay, the United States. The United States is the only functioning government that remains. Okay, the only functioning government. It is quickly not the United States of America, but the United States of the Americas. Okay, so it establishes the dominance of Canada. It also does South America as well, and becomes the United States of the Americas. Okay, that is what happens on Earth as these other cities. The lovely anaconda doing a barrel roll. That's what it means. Okay, and they establish control over what remains of the Earth. And
Delacey, Alpha, November, Delta. Welcome
a few
to Federal
remaining
facility.
governments,
Please observe all
remnants,
standard
if you like, of
docking
Europe, remnants of Australia, Africa, the Far East, the Middle East, basically look at this and go, we will not survive unless we join the United States. And at some point during this period, the date is not possible to pin down. I don't have the actual date. Just seeing a crate going past. At some point in this period, the United States of the Americas changes its name to the Federation of the United States. Okay, the FUS, oddly enough. The Federation of the United States is born. Okay, and at some point in the 21st century, the United States moniker is dropped, and all we have left is the Federation. That is the birth of the Federation as we know it in Elite Dangerous today, in the early 21st century. That's how old it is in the lore. Okay, well, somebody's filling up fuel. Thank you very much. So that is the beginning of the Federation. Okay, it is the remnants of the Earth governments that survived World War III, and it is the FUS. I know. Maybe that's not what I would have chosen to call it, but there we go. That's what happens. Okay, so the remnants of the governments, the United States takes over the United States of the Americas. It becomes the Federation of the United States, and then just the Federation. So, any Americans on the stream this evening, anybody watching, you guys win. Okay, that's it. That's the end game. America won. And and the Earth then belongs to the Americans. Okay, so they have a simplified constitution, and actually some of the reasons that it's called the Federation rather than the Federation of the United States, according to the law, is that an awful lot of some people are doing some amazing flying here. Basically saying the reason the United States was dropped from Federation of the United States, it was a block to the few remaining governments joining. They said we don't want to be part of the United States because we are the sovereign, whatever, maybe the United Kingdom, right? Okay. So they drop United States and just call it the Federation. So all the remaining governments can be subsumed, and that's what happens. So the Federation is mostly America, United States of America as we know it today, with a few representations from the rest of the surviving parts of the planet. That becomes the Federation. Okay. The laws of the Federation originate from the Constitution of the United States as it's known today. It is simplified, it is more inclusive. It includes a whole bunch of stuff about protecting the planet and never militarising again. But for the first time ever in Earth's history, mid to late 21st century, the Federation is a global government. Okay, there is nothing else on the Earth that isn't under single governmental control. The planet is effectively unified. Okay, there is no Far East, there is no China, there is no Australia, there is no Europe, there is a United Kingdom, there isn't the United States anymore. It is the Federation. The Federation is everything that is on the Earth. The Federation also controls all the orbiting space cities that are all around the Earth. And they also control the moon base, and they also control the missions to Mars. Okay, so the first landing on Mars is achieved in the year 2017, thereabouts. I don't know if I can see Mars itself. Where is Mars? Now, obviously in Elite Dangerous, it looks a little bit unusual to those of us. Oh, there's an amazing picture. Where is Mars? There it is. It looks a little bit unusual to us here because, of course, by the year 3300, as in Elite Dangerous, Mars has been terraformed. Mars has been terraformed. Now, we don't get to the terraforming of Mars for a little bit because it doesn't happen straight away. But by now, in Elite Dangerous, Mars is terraformed. It is a habitable planet. It isn't at all in the 21st century. Back at this point in time, Mars is as barren and inhospitable as ever. Okay. Never militarised. How am American? Well, okay, we'll come to that, but that's not happening today. As there's definitely more war coming. All right, there's more war. So there we go. So Mars has been terraformed by the time of Elite Dangerous. In fact, there's a story about that. We'll go into that sort of thing. So, but back in the 21st century, Mars is just as inhospitable as ever. Right? So in 2070, we get the first person on Mars, first Mars landing. It doesn't say. It does actually. The law does say it's the first man on Mars. So, well, diversity. We'll work on that. But and the first permanent moon base is established around about the 2070 era. Okay. We also at this point managed to find enough resource. Okay. And our new fusion technology, because we've built, one of the reasons we can get to Mars is we can achieve it in a reasonable time frame. Okay, so we not only have fusion as a power source, and we've not only used fusion bombs in World War III, but we've also managed to turn fusion power into a propulsive space drive. Okay, so we have fusion engine. There's a lovely code in World War III. Fine part. Very nice. Okay, so we have fusion power. Now, one of the reasons we can get to Mars and send them out there is because of this fusion drive. Okay, we can get to Mars in a few weeks, as opposed to using chemical rockets that we have right now. We just couldn't do it. Okay. Now, one of the reasons that's important because traveling through space at this point in time is extremely dangerous, right? Because of radiation. Okay, you would be dead. Okay. So one of the biggest problems of colonizing Mars today is how do you get there without getting poisoned by gamma ray and cosmic ray radiation. Okay, you do not want to be in space outside the protective envelope of Earth's magnetic field for very long, because you will just become too much damage. You'll get cancer and you'll die horribly. Okay, so there's two solutions to that. One is invent some kind of shield. Well, shield technology doesn't appear in Elite Dangerous for a long, long time. Okay, so we've got no shields at this period in time. The other one is to get there a lot faster, so your exposure to lethal radiation is much, much lower. That's one of the reasons why the lunar trip of Apollo 11 was okay, because they were only up in space for 6 days, and they worked out the amount of radiation they'd receive in that time period wasn't going to be enough to cause them too many problems. But going to Mars is a complete different kettle of fish, right? It's going to take you 6, 9, 12 months to get there, and that is not the same level of exposure. That's far different, and you will die of cancer, right? You either need massive amounts of lead, or you need a fast ship, okay, one that can do the Kessel Run. We'll go into that. But you need a fast ship to get to Mars, okay? Fusion power gives us that. Okay, that's why in 2070 we can get to Mars quickly, because fusion power gives us the ability to not be take a long time to get there, but neither to be tied by orbital mechanics. As Glenn, Commander Terraform, has just pointed out, with chemical rockets, you have to pick your moment, okay? Because Mars isn't in the right place in its orbit to get there. Fusion power gives us the ability to go there much, much more efficiently. At the same time, we deploy, humanity in this case, from the Earth, we deploy the first interstellar probes. Okay, so the first spacecraft, unmanned in this case, first interstellar probes. So not just the solar system, we are now going to look at Barnard's Star, we're going to look at Tau Ceti, we're going to look at Sirius, we're going to look at all the nearby stars that are potentially worth investigating to see if there's anything worth going to. Okay, we don't have the capability to go there yet. We don't have the capability to travel interstellar distances, but we're going to look using interstellar probes that are lightweight, using fusion drives that can accelerate to a reasonable fraction of the speed of light and report back to us about what's happening. Okay, so that happens at the end of the 21st century. We have interstellar probes based on fusion power, and we send those probes off. Okay, they're going to take decades to get there, but we start doing it because we have now a mind that we are a unified humanity. It sounds a little bit Star Trek, right? But it's a unified humanity. Internet spaceships become serious business. I see what you did there. Okay, and so we are on course to become a spacefaring culture. We have a base on the moon, we've landed on Mars, we've sent interstellar probes out to nearby stars, and we're hoping to get something good back from it. Okay, so that's what's going on. Now that accelerates quite quickly. Okay, that accelerates quite quickly. We start exploring the rest of the solar system. We look at the moons of Jupiter. Okay, notice here you can still see the traces on the system map of the exploration. We found a base, Columbus, around, and we've already mentioned Columbus actually at the beginning of this stream, right? We found a base, Columbus, in Jupiter. We start settling the moons of Jupiter. We do the same with Saturn at Titan City. And we even have, the ability to go and visit some of the other places. We actually settle the moons of Jupiter. They're actually worth going to, and doing that. And we start doing heavy mining on the moon. We start digging resources out of the moon and start doing it. Okay. So the progress into space, because of the fusion drive, is extremely rapid by the standards we have to. We don't have a fusion drive in our real timeline, but in the universe of Elite, the fusion drive unlocks the solar system. Okay, it allows us to get to Jupiter in a few weeks. It allows us to get to Saturn in a month, and we can travel the solar system. So actually, for those of you who have watched The Expanse, the level of technology that you see in The Expanse is kind of what the Elite universe has achieved by the late 21st century. As the world switches over to the 22nd century, we have that level of technology in the Elite lore. Okay, so ships that can accelerate through the solar system, they flip over. We still haven't got any kind of frame shift drive or anything like that. We don't have hyperspace, we don't have anything clever, but we have powerful fusion drives that can operate through real space at a decent clip. Okay, we can get to the places, but we still have the limits of physics. Okay, so it's entirely inertial space travel. So you have to pull so many G's when you're accelerating, and then you have to flip your spaceship over and decelerate the rest of the way. Okay, so that's the technology that unlocks the solar system for humanity, and it allows us to rebuild. Okay, because we can now build bases in different parts of the solar system. What we do, we colonize and build stations around Mars, around the Moon, around Mercury. We build a space station here around Io. We settle the surfaces of the Galilean moons, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, and we go as far out as Saturn. We clearly decided there wasn't much point in going any further, right? I've just moved the wrong screen there. Sorry about that. Does humanity have hibernation tech at the moment? Don't know actually. There's nothing in the lore about it, about hibernation tech. But some other stuff does start to happen. Okay, but basically, humanity is no longer just on the Earth. That era of being confined just to the Earth, it's over. Okay, we will never ever, as a race, be confined to a single planet anymore. These civilizations, these outposts, these colonies that we establish throughout the solar system become self-sufficient very, very quickly. Okay, they refine their own materials, they become their own economies. It's still utterly capitalist. Okay, so the fact that America was all that was kind of left after World War III sets the tone for the Federation. Capitalism rules. Okay, socialism is effectively forever banished to the annals of history. Some Americans will be really pleased with that. Whatever your political inclinations, this is the law of elite. Okay, so communism, socialism, everything is gone. Okay, capitalism is the only thing that remains, and that is the heart of the economy of the Federation. It is all about growth. It is all about exploit. It is all about financial instruments which just continue to require you to expand, consume, expand. Very much like the Earth is right now for many of the Western cultures that we live in. We have to consume resources, build more, sell more. It's capitalism. Okay, that is the fundamental structure of the Federation in the solar system. And we do what we did on Earth. Okay, we strip mine the moon, we exploit rare and precious gems and materials on the Galilean moons. We go down to Mars and we start terraforming it to make more space. We go mining. We get precious resources. We turn that into technology. We turn that into ships, and we continue to expand. The population growth comes back. So Earth is still in a mess, right, at this point in time, but the population of humanity in general in the solar system quickly goes past the limits of what was possible on the Earth and continues to expand. We begin to fill the solar system. All right, that's where we are at the end of the 21st century. Now, one of the things that is very interesting in the Elite lore, and this is a little aside because this comes from the original game. Okay. And I'm just going to go and get it, so excuse me for a moment. I've got to pop behind the universe and go and get the original game. And this is a genuine bit. Many of you who've been on my streams before have seen this, but this is a genuine piece of Elite lore in the real world. Okay, so this is, although the green screen is making the thing go a little bit. This is the original Elite game. Okay, try and get an angle so you can see it without the sun. Let me just go to full camera focus, right? Okay, so there we go. This is the original box for the original Elite game, okay? And this is from 1985 when Elite originally came out. This is the first game. Elite Dangerous is the fourth game, okay? And inside here we have the original manual. In the old days, games came with manuals. They printed things, right? This is the original space true. You just about read that. So I'll move this in, so let me put that aside. Try and get it so the lights aren't blaring on too much. It's very it's still very shiny after all these. It says Space Traders Flight Training Manual, okay, and that is a Spectrum version. Yeah, I had a ZX Spectrum computer. I don't have a BBC copy. Let me just close down that so if there's anything flying around, you can still see what's going on. There we go. So in here, printed manuals. Yeah, they're good. In here, there is a lovely small bit of lore, because this is where the lore is written down the first time it's written down. Okay, I just need to find it. Give me a moment. I should know the page by now, but where is it? Two ships in service. No. Oh, Starboards. Yeah, we'll talk about that in time. I'm just trying to find the right bit. Here we go. Right, so in the lore, now you may be able to see that on the camera. There's the camera, there we are. Generation ships, okay? Before the development of the WS through space drive in all its various forms, interstellar travel occurred in large self-sustained environment ships, generation ships, most of which have now been logged and their progress monitored. And there are more than 70,000 of these immense vessels ploughing their way through the galaxy, some of them into their 30th generation. And the penalty for interference with such a vessel is marooning. Okay, so that is the original. Yeah, you can't really see it without the glare coming off it, but apologies for that. But that's a piece of lore from the original manual, right? Okay, I like printed manuals because you can go read them after the event. But the generation ships, it says 30th generation. Okay, now actually it's a little bit more than that. We know from the Frontier lore that the first generation ship, in fact it's been confirmed on Galnet since, is that the first generation ship was actually launched in the year 2097. Okay, 2097. That's when the first generation ship was launched. So we went from the end of World War III, which is sometime in the 2040s, to being able to build a generation ship in 50 years. Okay, now that's actually quite staggering, right? From a law perspective, from anything, going from 50 years, but that shows the rate of technological progress that in the elite law that has been assumed for the purpose of the world building. Okay, so from the end of World War III, we are able to build a generation ship, which is several kilometres long, right? It's a big thing. Somebody in the chat earlier mentioned an O'Neill cylinder. It's that kind of level of technology, okay? So we start building generation ships right at the end of the 21st century. Okay, so 2097, the first one is launched from Sol. Okay, so from Earth orbit. It is, it is that sort of jump. Now, actually, Asticon there is making a good reference. We're 50 years from the first flight to the moon landing, and it's a similar sort of jump. So we go from World War III, utter devastation, to being able to build. There's a Guardian fighter. Very cool. Being able to build a generation ship in 50 years. Okay, we have the resources because we mined the solar system. Okay, we probably taken asteroids out of the asteroid belt and used it as raw materials to build a generation ship. Okay, we build a generation ship. It goes off. Okay, it goes off looking for somewhere to go, somewhere else to colonize in space. With so much dedication built into it, you don't build a generation ship on a whim, right? That's a major undertaking for humanity. The generation ships were funded by the structure that remained in the solar system, and they were incredibly expensive things. Now, bear in mind the economy of the solar system is capitalism. So you have to imagine a situation whereby why is it worth building a generation ship? And mostly it comes down to the economies of space. Okay, even with the colonization of the solar system, we are capitalism demands growth. Okay, and we need to go other places. Okay, we need to go other places. And so that's when the first generation ships launched. Some of them are corporate entities. Yes, you're quite right. So they are sort of funded by the capitalist environment that exists once we have a unified government across everything. The Federation promotes the corporations once again, and business rules. Okay, if you can afford it, you can make it, and that's where they start coming from. There were, according to this law, okay, so, and let's be fair to it, this book wasn't written with Elite Dangerous in mind. Okay, according to this, 70,000 generation ships were built in a relatively short period of time. Okay, so that shows you the sort of mobilization that was going on. 70,000. Now that number has been subsequently confirmed in Elite Dangerous law in Galnet. So there are 70,000 generation ships built in a very, very short period of time. All right, a very, very short period of time. And the resources from the solar system are used to build these generation ships, and they are built with a very high probability of actually getting to their destinations. Now, the thing that and this is a little bit out of sync in Elite Dangerous law, because according to some sources, the main source tells us that the first generation ship left in 2097. Okay, but the law also states that the first extrasolar images from other star systems by those interstellar probes that were sent out with the fusion tech didn't arrive back until the early 22nd century. In fact, you had to be 10 years in, so 2110 we're at to this point now, gives us the ability to see images from other solar systems sent back to us by the probes that were sent out there with fusion drives. They take 2 decades to get there and then send their final back, because obviously, if you've gone to Sirius, right, it's 8 light years away, you might take 2 decades to get there, but it's still going to take another 8 years for the message to come back because of the distance, right? There's no super light communication at this point at all. It's all through normal space. And the first close-up pictures of other planets start getting reported back to Earth, according to the law, in 2110 onwards. And that, you have to kind of play a little bit fast and loose with the law here, because why would you send a generation ship out before you knew there was anywhere worthwhile going, right? That doesn't quite make sense. That needs a little bit of rationality. But basically, the way the story is told, the way the story kind of works, is that we get these reports back from the interstellar probes that were sent out 2 decades before, and they come back saying there are habitable planets out there. Okay, there are habitable planets around other stars that are we can go to. We could settle there. Humanity could live on these planets, and that is the impetus for the generation ship thing. Now, the conditions in the solar system are we're getting overcrowded again. Capitalism demands growth. Okay, constant growth. More resources, more people, more jobs, more things. And if it's constrained by resources, it becomes overpopulated, and you get the same problems again. The Federation knew they did not want to go there because they knew it led to war. Right? It had been proved many times in Earth's history by this point. They did not want another war internally, so they had to expand. And that was the impetus for the generation ships to go out there. Go and settle other worlds. Humanity will not be confined to the solar system anymore. We have to go out and find new places to live, right? New places to live. That is a formative moment at that point. Okay, a formative moment at that point. Now, what I want to do is I want to drop down to Mars orbit, because there's one
French
thing. So let's form up and then head down to, as close as we can get to the surface. So head down towards the Martian surface. Now, it's not going to look down too interesting, but we will get there.
Frameshift drive charging. Frameshift drive charging.
Frameshift drive to start.
Charging. Frameshift drive charging. Frameshift drive charging. Frameshift drive charging.
It's just complicated, this elite war stuff, you know.
4, 3, 2,
There's lots of stuff.
1.
You have to make
Engage.
sure. There we go. Right. Frameshift drive is charging, so let's head down to the surface of Mars. Here we go. And close up on Mars. If I can get into hyperspace, I'm getting blue tunneled here. That's nice. The game, I busted it. Right, oh, there we go. There we go, right. Now, interesting things happen because this again at this point in history, technological development is massive. Okay, technological development is still massive. The Federation, as it exists now, has massive resources available to it. The whole of the solar system, all of the people. It's full of MSDs. Yes. Oh my God, it's full of stars. It is. It has massive capability, massive R&D, massive, amounts of money and resource that, by our standards, in the 21st century, are, we are nothing like that now. Okay, they have the entire resources of the solar system at their disposal. Okay, now that means that they've got massive R&D capability. Okay, and they are researching anything and everything to aid in this extravagant adventure across space. Okay. Because they want to expand. They know the galaxy. They know the solar system isn't big enough for their ambitions. Okay, they want to expand further and further and further. They want to get out of the solar system, and that is a massive technological hurdle to overcome. The fusion drive is not enough. Okay, the generation ships are a grand endeavour. Okay, but they're not the end of the story, and they don't last very long. Okay, they don't last very long. They are launched in a relatively narrow window of time from 2097 onwards for only about 200 years. Okay, let's go down as close as we can to the surface of Mars. You can still see it's cratered, much like Mars is today. Most of the major features are still. I've dropped down. There we go. Not quite so close, but there we go. But the generation ships, 70,000, which sounds enormous to me. It's probably too big a number, really. That's something. I'm not a big fan of retconning the law, but I think 70,000 is one of the things I would vote to be retconning. Okay, because I think it's too big a number. But it's in the law. It's the law. Okay, I can't argue with that. And it's been reconfirmed since from the original fleet manual that you just saw. So we settle Mars. Okay, we have a permanent Mars base by the end of the 21st century. We're strip mining the moon. We're filling the solar system, and we're trying to expand. The generation ships are heading out. We've had the first images of extrasolar planets coming back, basically telling us the universe seems to be full of planets we can live on, and there's places we can go, and the generation ships are heading out to do exactly that. Now, in the early part of the 22nd century, actually, I haven't seen the fleet carrier stream, so no spoilers for me. I need to go and watch that. I hope they were good. I haven't looked on Twitter or Facebook or anything yet to see if everyone went yay or everyone went meh. So we'll have to wait and see, right? I'm looking forward to seeing what the generation, not the fleet carrier is all about. I won't be able to afford one, as you can see. My credit balance is measly, even after 5 years of playing. haven't got the habit of where's my money? It's in one of these, isn't it? Oh, I don't know where it is. Is it that one? I can't find. Oh, there it is, down there. Balance. Yeah, I've got 153 million credits. I need to get my acting gear and earn some cash at some point. But I'm not all all too bothered, right? Yeah, I'm sure some of you will be able to buy one in the full one. That'd be great fun. But at this point in history, right, the generation ships are going. We know the extrasolar planets are habitable, and we also know that so there's places to go, right? There's places to go, but R&D is taking place at a massive rate, and we are researching technology. Now, two important things happen at this point. We step out to the surface of Mars. Okay, we discover something odd on the surface of Mars. There are some descriptions have them as artifacts. Some descriptions have them as fossils. Would I be very kind to turn my wing beacon on? Yes, I can do that. There we go. Whoever's in my wing beacon. There we go. So let me just do my friend request. There we go. Let me just do that quickly before we move on to that particular point, because this is an important one. Okay, this one is another one that prompts us to keep moving, because we discover evidence on the surface of Mars that either there was some sort of other capability in the solar system that was non-human, or some kind of strange presence that maybe somebody came through the solar system and left something behind. Whatever these things are, they're still not understood by the time of Elite Dangerous. We discover that, and from the way I read it, it's not clear in the law, and it's not been expanded upon. Okay, but what the Elite Dangerous law says is there's something came through and left its mark on Mars, apparently. Now, it doesn't seem to be a native Martian species, but something left its mark on Mars. We discover this. Okay, humanity discovers that Mars had something happen to it, and whatever these things are is not explained in the law. Okay, it's not been expanded upon, and the location of these artifacts is not clear either. Okay, they're shrouded in secrecy to the time of Elite Dangerous. They are not. Nobody knows precisely what they are. Some of them are very small, and they are unknown. Origin remains unknown even today. Okay, in the universe of Elite Dangerous. So there is a secret that the Federation, some people speculate, is holding. Okay, maybe they don't want to alarm the general population, but it's a secret they've kept for over 1,000 years by the time of Elite Dangerous. So it's a big secret, right? So that is something that we discover on the surface of Mars. We are basically, this is the first time humanity gets an indication that it is not alone in a universe. Somebody somewhere was able to put a manufactured artifact on Mars that was not of human origin. At this point in time, there is nothing about the Thargoids, nothing about the Guardians, nothing about things. And it seems, based on the description, it can't be confirmed one way or the other, but it seems that these artifacts are not...
Frameshift drive charging.
Why are they on Mars? We don't know that either. Okay, but they were discovered. It's the first indication that humanity is not alone in the universe. Okay. It's like cell phone back. Yeah. So we get this. It's a further push. It's a further push for mankind to get out there. Okay, to get out there. They don't seem to be native Martian. Maybe they are. We really don't know. But hopefully. My wing beacon on now. I did switch it on, didn't I? Yeah, it's on. So you should be able to find me the rest of my wing, hopefully. I'll see if you can join in. That's a mystery, okay? And that's been in the Elite lore for a long time, right? Okay, it's been in the Elite lore for a long time. And at that point in time, we get that information. We also discover something else. Okay, at this point, through the massive R&D efforts that are underway throughout the solar system, is that hyperspatial technology is discovered. Okay, the ability to travel, or the ability to appreciate or make the first tentative exploration,
Frameshift drive
investigation
charging.
of hyperspace. Okay, this is the first time
Ready to
that
engage.
humanity becomes aware that there's a potential way
Engage.
space with non-relativistic travel. Okay, hyperspace becomes a thing this early in the elite lore. It's quite a weird thing. When I look at this, it seems an odd choice, but this is when hyperspace is discovered, right at the end of the 21st century, early 22nd century. Hyperspace is discovered. Okay. It's quickly employed. Okay, it's incredibly. I imagine at this point, it's incredibly complicated and incredibly expensive. It's not accessible to most people. For a long, long time, hyperspace is incredibly difficult to manage. Okay, it is incredibly expensive. It's probably incredibly bulky. The power requirements are literally astronomical. Okay, so it's not an accessible form of hyperdrive, but it's hyperdrive that is. It works, right? It's hyperdrive. Okay. And it becomes a capability to these sort of things. Now, at this point, as well, we get other telemetry back from interstellar probes. Okay, we get interstellar probes back that indicate the presence of life in another solar system, and the first one that reports back with the presence of interstellar, non-humanoid, non-terrestrial, extraterrestrial life comes from the Tau Ceti star system. Okay, the Tau Ceti star system. So we get images back, we get telemetry back, we get atmospheric data and all sorts of other stuff that allows us to make this determination. Quite how they did it, I'm not sure, but you can imagine that the atmospheric content or methane or all those kind of things, right? There's a planet in the Tau Ceti system that has life on it. Okay, we get that information back from the probes. So we have discovered hyperspace. We've discovered that we're not alone in the universe, and we discovered that nearby, only a few light years away. How far away is Tau Ceti? Somebody will type it in the chat, right? Not far away is a planet that is capable of supporting life, kind of as we know it, to use the sort of Star Trek thing, right? So not far away is a planet that can do that. And that continues to prompt us to expand, right? We can go out there, there's stuff to discover, there's other life forms, there are places we can settle. Okay, so it is there's a reason to go. There's reasons to go, and this has to happen kind of in concert around the generation ship. So the lore is a little bit inconsistent here. The dates are a bit messed up, but maybe that's just history, right? We're not quite sure what the actual really truth is, but we discover that there's places to go. We now have the capability to go there, and we have reasons to go. And there's one final reason that prompts us to go. Okay, so back into frameshift drive for this one. One final reason that prompts us to go out there and have a look, and that is found here in the asteroid belt. I don't know if we can select. Oh, there's no. There is no. We can't actually go to the asteroid belt. No, is Ceres in? It isn't, is it? That is so annoying. You can't actually. I've never tried that before. I should have tried this. You can't actually go to the asteroid belt. Oh well, never mind. Ceres isn't in the game. Now Ceres should be in the game. Now Dave Braben, bless him, is a big fan of astronomical accuracy. So Ceres is a perfectly decent dwarf planet. From the, I don't know, maybe is it? Has Venus, Earth, Moon, Jupiter, Saturn. Triton. Pluto. All of the other dwarf planets. Why isn't Ceres in the game? Whoa, that's a big omission. I had never noticed that. So the law makes it sound like the crash series into Master Pharaoh. Maybe. I don't think I've got any filters switched on. Planets and moons. So it should be there. No, there's no filters. I don't normally use the filters. That's weird. I don't think there's anything in the lore about Ceres being destroyed. I'll check, but I don't think there is. That's weird. Okay. In that case, we can't go there. We'll go to the nearest place. Okay, let's hang out in Columbus Space Station in orbit around Io. Okay, in near Jupiter, because that's one of the big hubs of humanity in this period of time. Let's go to Columbus Space Station. We'll hang out there because that's going to be on our stop for today. Because next week we're going to take our first frame shift jump, hyperspace jump. Okay. To go and see what happens next, right? I've got more friend requests coming in. No, I haven't. I've got some pending invites. I better get you guys in. Captain Dre. Here we go. So let's go there. We can't go to the Asteroid Belt, which is actually where that little bit of the story is set. Escape vector. There we go. So yeah, so head for Columbus Space Station in orbit around Io, in orbit around Jupiter. You have to manually drop into the belt, so I don't know how to do that. How do I know I'm in the right place? But anyway, we'll talk about it anyway. Let's go to Columbus. That's maybe something I need to learn how to do. But I will check that. I'm interested to know if there's a reason that Ceres is no longer there, because it's a perfectly valid place in our world. Okay. Have you FSS the Asteroid? I don't know. Do you need to do that? Oh, okay. Well, then maybe I'll just try that. Let me just. How do I get into the FSS? Oh, I got dropped down, and I can't do that because I'm in Supercruise Assist. Oh God. Alright, hang on a minute. Let me just see if I can. FSS. Yeah. My key bindings are. I haven't used this for ages. I've got a complete scan, haven't I? So hang on a minute. Which one of these is asteroid belts? There we are. Asteroid clusters. There is one. So where is? It's too much for faff. We'll go to Columbus. I'll talk about it. Series of missions. So yeah. So that's weird. All right. Let me go and get that back again. Sorry guys. Let's stick with our plan and go to Columbus. There we go. No, I dropped out of Supercruise. Yeah, I'll be there then. Sorry about this. It's far too complicated, this game. Right, there we go. Right. Head for Columbus. We'll rendezvous in Columbus. That'll be the time to stop. This one. 30 new messages as well. I'll have to have a quick look through there. Right, so Supercruise Assist is on. Right, that's good. Now, so just to recap, we discover hyperspace. We discover alien life. We discover we're not alone in the universe. Okay, and we also have a little bit of an overcrowding problem again. Okay, we have a little bit of an overcrowding problem in the solar system. We've expanded so far and so fast that we are running out of space again. Okay, we are running out of space again. And as a result of that, what everybody hoped would never happen starts to happen. Okay, there are there are corporations vying for resources. It's capitalism, right? It's still capitalism. And when the resources start to become scarce or incredibly valuable, then conflict. Okay, conflict starts to happen again.
Mission
And
objective detected.
the reason I wanted to go to the Asteroid Belt actually was, according to the law, the first armed space conflict happens in the Asteroid Belt. Okay, first time that spacecraft actually fire on each other in space. Okay, so using fusion drives, using kind of very expansive sort of weapons, I imagine. Okay, so I don't think there's going to be much in the way of laser technology at this point that's effective. So it's probably munitions, it's probably miniguns, right? Multi-gun type stuff. Okay, actual space conflict happens in the elite universe for the first time in around the beginning of the 22nd century. Okay, people start fighting in space. So the whole elite spaceships fighting each other in space thing comes from about that time. And what that means is that we now have space forces. Okay, so you have people then defending patches of space with craft. Okay, primitive, but spacecraft. Okay, missiles, torpedoes, probably kind of railgun type things. Mines, maybe, all that sort of stuff. Okay, it becomes a military kind of thing. Again, it's pushing a technological envelope really, really fast. So in a very short space of time, you have high-powered spacecraft, you have weapons that operate in space, and you have spacecraft designed to fight. And that's where this military, build your spaceship, cover with guns, and defend yourself, kind of Wild West sort of thing comes from. And so Elite has always had spaceship combat, right? It's always had trade, it's always had that anarchistic almost kind of background to it. This very grim, very gritty universe where you don't trust anyone. Right? You don't, you're suspicious of everybody's motives. And this is where it comes from really early in the history of Elite, is that it's a violent universe. Okay, you fight for what you want to take, you take it and you hold it by force. Okay, that is the way the Elite universe starts out, really, really early on in the days of the Federation, even before we get out of the solar system. Okay, mankind never really grows up. Humanity never gets much better in the sense of, finding better ways to solve its problems. Okay, it's fighting, it's squabbling over resources. It's we expand, we consume all the resources until we can expand no more. Then we squabble and fight over what remains until we find somewhere else to expand into, and we keep doing it. Okay, so humanity, the history of Elite Dangerous is not the sanitized world of Star Trek. Okay, where we better ourselves and we have conferences and we banish money and everybody has free access to everything. That vision of the universe is not the Elite Dangerous one. The Elite universe is grim. It's there we go. Got a few spaceships in orbit around Columbus. There we go, Columbus Space Station, orbit around ISO. Everybody rendezvous here for a few more screenies. Okay, so it's grim, it's gritty. Okay, it's fight for your survival. It is not a happy universe like the universe of Star Trek. We do not better ourselves. We are the same people in the 34th century as we are in the 20th century. We fight, we squabble, we shoot each other up, we take what we can. Okay, and sometimes we abide by the laws, and sometimes we don't. Okay? Humanity doesn't really change. We are the same creatures out in space as we are on Earth. The only thing is we have more tech. Okay, we We do not really improve our society structures all that much. We are the same creatures. Which is slightly depressing, actually, but I suspect quite realistic. Okay, so that's the kind of the structure we have. So we go to war. We start fighting over resources in the asteroid belt. Okay, we start fighting over resources in the solar system, and that takes us to about 2120. That's basically the way things work. At this point, we know we've got to expand, otherwise we're going to kill ourselves. Okay, this is the Federation sort of founding proposition. So with the new hyperspace technology, we go off looking. We send interstellar probes, not with the fusion drives, but with hyperspace, and catalog very, very quickly the systems around us. We send hyperspace probes to the nearby systems. Very, very quickly. We invest all our time in generating early hyperspace tech, and we go and visit using these probes. All the nearby systems. We basically do a big survey using unmanned of all the nearby systems together. And that shows us that the sphere of stars around the Earth, around the solar system, is eminently suited for us to go out and colonize and effectively expand into. So that's what we do. That's what we do. So from the point at which we are, we start having overcrowding populations again in the soul, to the point we discover hyperspace technology, to the point where we discover there is other life out there, right? There's stuff to be seen, there's stuff to do, there's stuff to investigate, and there are other planets out there that are not only suitable for us to colonize, but also have resources, right? It's still capitalism, it's still business, it's still the Federation. We are poised to go out there and start colonizing other systems. And that is where this first chapter of the story of Dangerous comes to an end. Okay? So we've gone from the voyages of the 15th and 17th centuries of Earth, where we chart the planet, to the point where we almost wipe ourselves out in the First and Second, and then the Third World War. Almost everything is wiped out on Earth, but that technological innovation that happens in wartime pushes us out to the Moon, to Mars, into orbit space, and also into the rest of the solar system. We colonize the solar system. We send probes out into the darkness. We discover hyperspace. We discover we're not alone. We discover
Caution.
life.
Stay clear of landing pads.
And we are poised to go beyond our solar system for the first time as a race. And that is next week's lore session. So I hope you have enjoyed a little bit of a brief tour of the lore. We are here every Thursday, pretty much. Do check the itinerary. It's on my website. If you type Drew Wagar Lore Tour, Elite Dangerous, into Google, you'll find it. Right? It's all indexed by now. So that will tell you where we're going and where to meet up. We will be meeting up. Where are we meeting up? I published it such a long time ago, I can't remember where it is. Let me just go and look it up. Where will we be meeting next week? We are meeting in the it'll probably be Tau Ceti, won't it? Maybe Tau Ceti. I'm just trying to hang on, I'll find it now. There we go. Elite Dangerous level 2. We'll be in the Tau Ceti system, okay, next week. So I need you to hyperspace to Tau Ceti. And we will rendezvous. I'll give you a location in Tau Ceti to rendezvous, and we will continue the story from that being crushed by spaceships. We will continue the Elite Dangerous lore tour in the Tau Ceti system and pick up the story as we begin to move out into the galaxy, right? We are leaving Sol. We have moved beyond Sol. We are moving out into the galaxy. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this evening. It's been great fun to put all this together and to chat to you on the stream. It's been really enjoyable. Thank you ever so much for everybody who's turned up in the PG. I hope commanders in other groups and on Xbox and PS4 have been able to follow along as well. And I will be uploading this. For those of you who haven't been able to see this live, I have recorded it on my computer. I will be uploading it to YouTube, so you can follow along there as well. If you want to repeat the tour in your own good time. So fantastic. Hope you will join us back for next week's session. We are several weeks, so the lore tour will be bouncing around the bubble for I think about 12 weeks. I should really know. I can't remember. I have organised it. I've written it all down, right? But I can't keep it all in my brain. But do check out that. We were bouncing around the bubble for the most part. Now there is an extended lore tour as well. If you wish to join us, because the last piece of lore is going to talk about Salome and the events in the Prism system. Okay, and we will then take an extended trip. For those of you who are up for it, not all of you have to do this, and some of you will be busy trying to get a fleet carrier out. But some of you may wish to join a slightly longer expedition, which actually takes us out of the bubble into the Formidine Rift, all the way to the Zuara, which is part of the story that I wrote for Elite Dangerous many years ago now. Just Palooka there. Sticky his nose in. There's an upside down. Is that a clipper? Upside down or a cutter? I can't really tell. It's quite funny. Yeah, there's going to be extended lore tour all the way out there if you fancy a longer range exploration trip. But we'll be doing the history of Elite all the way through the next few weeks. I will also hopefully have some special guests. I'm still trying to align those. So some of the people who were involved in the lore in the early days of Elite Dangerous stream will have some live chats and Discord. There's sort of things and have those on the stream as well. So yeah, it'll be lots of fun. And I'm absolutely delighted with the number of people who've turned up. Thank you ever so much for popping into the private group. Glad there's so much love for the law, right? That's really heartening to me as somebody who's very passionate about the law and wanted to find out a little bit more about the background to Elite Dangerous. So that's really good. What's the link on your site to Torsha? Let me go and dig that out. Let me just go find it, and then everybody knows where it is. So yeah, if you need any more information, it is here. Come back. Too many windows open. There we go. That's where the itinerary is. So more next week. We'll discover what happens next. Okay. So the Federation has been formed, but it only exists in Sol. Next week we find that the Federation expands, but of course things go wrong. So come back next week, same time, same channel, for next week's session, and we will rendezvous in the Tau Ceti star system. So that's where we're going to be. Thank you ever so much. You have a fantastic week. Enjoy putting the credits together for Fleet Carriers. I hope that's going to be worthwhile. I'm going to check out that stream in a bit. That will come out. Stay safe, obviously, with the lockdown and the virus. And you guys look after yourself, all right? So thank you very much. Good night, 07, and right on, Commanders. My poor Cobra's getting bashed to pieces. Have a good one. Thank you very much, and I will see you next week.
Well, there we have the first segment of the Elite Dangerous Lore Tour with Drew Wagar himself as the tourist guide. Amazing, absolutely amazing. So I hope you liked it. I didn't talk. I had no reason to talk. There was plenty going on from Drew. and it was good to get in Drew's instance and follow him about a bit. So there you have it, folks, for those who couldn't get on the take part in the actual Twitch stream. You can watch this or watch Drew's Twitch stream once he uploads it. So thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, leave any comments underneath, and hopefully see you next week when we're back on again with Drew. I may do it live next week. I think I will. I think it's worth just doing it live rather than uploading it. And yeah, good fun. To subscribe, please click the link in the top left, and to see the other videos in the Elite Dangerous playlist, click the logo in the top right. Thanks for watching, folks. Taddy bye.